Hi, I'm Sandy Ray, founder of Sandra E. Ray, CPA, where we alleviate financial headaches so that you can create a bigger impact. Today, I want to talk about how to change your fiscal year end. Last week, we talked about the considerations that go into making the decision to change your fiscal year end, and today I want to talk about the mechanics of it. So let's get started. There are several things that you need to consider. First is your organizing documents. Some nonprofits have their fiscal year end like hard-coded into their organizing documents. So you may need to look at those documents and determine if you need amendments to those documents and follow the procedures that are set forth in your bylaws to get that done. And while amending those documents, you need to look at your state's Secretary of State's website for the requirements for filing for changes to your organization, like a change in your fiscal year end and what they're going to require you to do to be compliant. And while you're looking at these changes to your organizing documents, I want you to consider the terms of the board of directors. Now, there's no requirement that says your board of directors terms have to be on the same time period as your fiscal year, but most organizations find that it's much simpler if they do. But if you decide not to make that change to those board of director terms, please keep in mind that on your 990, every board member who is active during your fiscal year has to be listed on that 990. So you're going to increase the number of individuals that you report on that board of directors list. It's not a problem. There's plenty of space to do that. Another thing that you're going to want to consider if you're a membership organization is how is the change in your fiscal year going to affect your members and your membership years. Now, if you're a calendar year end with the members on a calendar year, do you want to consider updating those members to the same period as your fiscal year end? And how are you going to do that? Are you going to charge them an extra fee? Are you going to give them that time period for free? Those are things that you need to consider. But if you're already on what I like to call an anniversary year, which means that your members renew on the anniversary of the day they joined, this isn't an issue for you. You're just going to continue business as usual. Another thing I want you to look at is the states where you're registered for charitable solicitation, and specifically, how do they handle those short years, what we call short years, which is the time frame from the end of your fiscal year to the beginning of your new fiscal year. You're going to have anywhere from 1 month to 11 months in a short period, and each state is going to have its own requirements on how to handle that. And if the state requires an audit, you're going to want to talk with your auditors how you're going to comply with all those state charitable solicitation registrations and what kind of report you're going to need from your auditors. Do you need a short period report and then your new fiscal year, or can you combine the short period and the new fiscal year together and have a report that covers more than 12 months? And just a side note, for these audit reports, we are generally not going to do comparative reporting. And that's what I mean is we're not going to have a comparative report for the last year because the timeframes just aren't the same and the information is not going to logically compare. So think about that as well. As do you want to just report the short year or the awkward year and then start the comparatives after that? So those are the things that you need to do for internally and with the states. Now I want to talk about what you need to do with the IRS. There's two ways to get your accounting year changed with the IRS for your 990. And the first is what they call the simple method, and it's wonderful. Revenue Procedure 8558, that's RevProc 8558, is the simplified method for tax-exempt organizations to change their accounting year. And to do that, some pretty simple requirements. Number one, You cannot have changed your fiscal year in the last 10 years. So it has to be at least 10 years before you changed your fiscal year. But there are some tax-exempt organizations that do not qualify for this procedure. They are farm cooperatives, debt collection agencies, debt relief agencies, fighting off the debt collectors, political organizations, homeowners associations, and pension and profit sharing plans. Now, if you're not one of these organizations and you haven't changed your fiscal year end in 10 years, you qualify for this process. And it's really simple. You're going to file your short year 990 by the 15th day of the 5th month. So say you change your fiscal year end to June 30th, that'll be November 15th. You're going to file your short year 990 by November 15th. And at the top, in big bold letters, you're going to type change in accounting period. That's it. That's all you have to do. If you follow those instructions, you will be deemed to have obtained the approval of the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service for a change in accounting period. That's it. That's all you have to do. The next year, you file your 990 for the 12 months on your new fiscal year. Now, if you have changed your fiscal year in the last 10 years, or you're one of those organizations that don't qualify for the simple procedure, you're going to have to file a Form 1128. We talked about it a little bit last week. That's the application to adopt, change, or retain a tax year with the IRS. Now, your Form 1128 has to be filed with the IRS by the 15th day of the 5th month following your current year end. So if you're currently a December year end, that Form 1128 is due by May 15th. The form is fairly simple, but there's a user fee that has to be submitted with it. And the base user fee is $5,000, and it increases from there. Most organizations, smaller organizations, are not going to be able to afford this. Or, it's still pretty pricey if you're a larger organization. So you want to make sure that you follow the steps to qualify for the simple procedure. But if you have to file a Form 1128, you get it timely filed and you submit the user fee, then the IRS will process your application. Now, this is not automatic like the simplified method. The IRS will let you know if they've approved your application or not. And once you've received that approval, they will give you the steps to go from there. So, kind of to summarize, once you've decided to make a fiscal year end change, there's several things that you need to do. You need to look at your organizing documents. Do they need amendments with regards to the fiscal year end or board of member terms, or maybe even the membership year? What requirements do you have with your Secretary of State to report changes in your organizing documents? Usually there's a small user fee with that as well. What do you need to do for the states for your charitable solicitation registrations? And how does that affect your audit or your review? And then finally, you need to make the IRS aware that you want to do that change, either through the simplified method, where you just follow the procedures from Rev Proc 8558, or you file the Form 1128. I hope this has been helpful. I want to thank you for joining us today. And remember that creating a bigger impact starts with stopping the nonsense. If you're dealing with nonsense in your nonprofit organization, we'd love to help you cut through the noise.